Welcome, everybody. So this is Shad, and I'm talking with Sylvia. And we're going to talk about careers and Sylvia's experience. So the first thing I would like to put on the screen is the desktop that shows an article that we wrote. So an intriguing title that says, My Career Story from Bootcamp to Google in About 1 Year. So Sylvia, what we're going to talk about is your experience and some of your recommendations, because the target audience that we're going to be viewing here are my students, who are all that 19 to 24 age, and they're all worried about careers. And of course, Google is very attractive. A couple of questions they're going to have is, why are we wasting so much tuition and 4 years of our time when there are examples like you out there? So why don't you just give us a quick summary of what you wrote here in the article and where you stand right now?
My background is kind of all over the place. In college, I was really interested in just a bunch of different things. I feel like I tried every possible major. I was like, on the one hand, chemistry, computer science, math, but then on the other, I do enjoy the humanities, social sciences, philosophy. I took 2 days of a computer science 101 course in my freshman year. And it was many years ago now. I barely even remember what the course was supposed to cover or what those 2 days were even like. But I just remember being so intimidated by so many. I was like, if I have any doubt at this point, just drop it, come back to it later. And ended up majoring in philosophy, technically with a concentration in economics and psychology. So I graduated in 2017. So I got a job in a law firm. I thought I would work as a paralegal and go to law school one day. Law school kind of is like the default cliche job path for college graduates, I feel like, if they don't really know what they want to do, but it seems like a responsible enough choice. And so I was a paralegal, didn't really like it, but a paralegal is basically just an office assistant. So I thought, well, this doesn't necessarily mean I don't like law. I think it just means I don't like filing things and getting copies for attorneys. So didn't entirely give up on law, but I did get a master's degree in international relations, just a 1 year program. Looking back, that was super random and not useless. Like, all of my experiences are useful to me today, but it's just funny that I definitely did not need that. And then I finally decided, like, December 2019, January 2020, I'm gonna do it completely, 100%. Give up on law school. Never took the LSAT. Went back to San Francisco and started this coding boot camp. And the coding boot camp was supposed to be in person from January to May of 2020, but super unfortunate timing. The pandemic hit right in the middle of my course, so switched to online class for that and still finished in May of 2020, and was just applying to jobs 24/7. That was my life, all over LinkedIn, various job boards, everything, until August of 2020, when I got my first paid legitimate software engineering opportunity with a very small startup that was just contract. So I was not like a full-time employee. I was just a contractor. There's all kinds of weird tax things there. That was a great first experience for so many reasons. I got an offer from another startup, slightly bigger, full time. Then, like, a few weeks later, the Google recruiter reached out to me. So I worked for about a month for the second startup, and I absolutely loved them. That was also an amazing experience. But then I had to leave way earlier than I ever thought I would, because everything with Google happened. And I started that March of this year. So I've only even been at Google for about a month now. I love it. It's amazing. That is my full story leading up to this.
What I sense then are essentially four ways that you have learned. Uh, First of all, you got some background education and a college degree. Second, you started doing self-study. Third, you went to a boot camp. And then fourth, you got some on-the-job experience, obviously. The first question that comes up is, what was so scary about computer science that you ran from it? Was the university not helpful, or were you just not ready for it?
I do think that my university, so I went to the University of Chicago, and they have just a lot of like bad reputations for just really taking pride in being difficult and like having weed out 101 courses. So even if it says something like computer science 101 and it's the most basic course you could possibly take as a first year student, I thought I knew computers, but yeah, I like being so scared of even just the first assignment. And looking back, I was just like a scared freshman student. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to do anything other than just like cut and run if it wasn't easy, because I was so overwhelmed by the whole environment of college in general, I guess. So looking back, I probably could have asked for more help or found a tutor or gone to the professor.
When you started going back, though, and getting interested, you found that the online resources were pretty good by that point. So Khan Academy was your substitute for the 101 class, really.
Yes, definitely. And I guess also if at that time, my freshman year of college, if I had known about more of the free online things, even just for any of my other classes, chemistry, math, whatever, general education courses, I feel like I was not super savvy with being able to find my own resources, because they give you these college textbooks and lectures, and it's like, okay, just focus on that. But that's just a general life skill I think I've gotten better at, of like finding my own resources online.
So then you went into boot camp, which cost you a lot of money. Did they have some kind of a secret sauce that made their content different than free resources online?
Yeah, so this is always, I still struggle to answer this. Really hard for me to offer advice of like if the boot camp was worth the money. I like to think of it as almost like a designer handbag or something. Like, yeah, it's expensive and it's nice, but you could probably get the same thing for way less money and or free. But I am really thankful to my boot camp. I feel like they did a lot of things that helped. Just again, I don't know if it was exactly like worth the money, which maybe no one can say what is worth the money and what isn't, because I do think the biggest factor for me personally was just having somewhere to go in person. I was living in San Francisco. I was going into this really cool WeWork building every day. It was like the same building as Uber and Square, and like right next to Twitter. And it was just really cool. It was such a cool vibe. Like, you could do coffee chats with all these people who were software engineers in the lobby of this really nice building. And they had little like networking social events with various San Francisco tech people. So I thought that was the biggest benefit. But of course, now it's kind of hard to say. Right before I decided to actually do the boot camp, I was doing a lot of stuff on my own. And it was like possible for sure, very possible to do these things on my own. But I would just get really stuck and like either didn't want to ask anyone for help or didn't know who to ask for help. But having that like structured boot camp instructors, TAs, and also like classmates, peers to ask for help, even remotely, that was a huge benefit. I think they organized the course well. Again, I think that's just a kind of inherent benefit to any type of course versus self-taught for me personally, because when I was doing self-taught, I was like jumping all over the place.
So here's a question. So
Mhm.
you took a jump and you went to San Francisco to do the boot camp, and you had this great environment where you're connecting with people that are around you to likely get you into companies to get you a job. So if you were to, let's say, get a job in a boot camp in Columbus, Ohio, or Kansas City, or Topeka, or not Silicon Valley, they have the exact same curriculum, good teachers, but wouldn't be the same value. Is that what I'm getting?
A little bit, yeah. I think again with the pandemic, so many people have gone remote and just moved outside of San Francisco. And there's all these different cities I keep hearing about that are like supposed to be the new tech hub, like the new Silicon Valley is Dallas or Tulsa. I don't know. So I mean that I can't really speak to it just because we're all still remote and I haven't really lived anywhere else yet. One thing that was a huge like benefit of my boot camp is that they had these people called employer partnership. And so they worked for Flatiron, and they would like, just network with other companies and try to get Flatiron students like networking things. And I think in July of 2020, I got an email about like a Google virtual networking lunch thing. And I mean, that actually, after I went to that, it did lead me to an interview, but I was rejected. So like, but then that was like, that's what started my, having a file, being on file at Google. So even though it wasn't like an immediate benefit, it started a very long chain of events where I'm like, I don't know if I ever would have been contacted by this Google recruiter if not for having attended that, because it was a totally different recruiter. The one that I met through Flatiron was not related at all to the job that I have now, but it's all connected. And it was virtual. So those are the kinds of things that would be still a huge benefit in any city.
So an equivalent would say, let's say you decide to pick a college, a university. So I could go to, let's say, the University of Colorado, nice school. I just picked a random one, but it's not Stanford, it's not MIT, it's not Harvard. Is the connection that you're getting then at those elite schools is that you're going to be in school with another founder of a startup and they're going to hire you? Is that the connection that you're paying for?
Kind of similar to like what I said about the meeting that Google recruiter through Flatiron. I think some of my connections from undergrad or like bigger schools, they help in those little ways that like start a really long chain reaction of maybe being related to something good. So I don't want to say like, oh, they're useless, but not as much benefit as I think people would like to think. Like my parents always say, oh, you should be able to find someone who went to U Chicago that works for this and that. And it's like, yeah, I totally can. I can use my network. I can find a person. I can contact them on LinkedIn, their email, whatever. But it just usually doesn't really end up leading to anything directly. I still am like, I don't even know what ended up finally clicking into place to get me into Google, but I would very generally say, yeah, the bigger schools, like elite schools, all that are helpful but overrated.
Tell me about the nature of work that you're doing at Google. Are you coding, or are you kind of project management or design? What kind of work does Google want you to do?
Google takes like onboarding and training very, very seriously. I'm still surprised at like, I've only been here for a month, but everything I've done so far has been just onboarding, training, learning. It almost feels like boot camp again, but just specific to Google. Google is especially known for just having their own everything. So like if you're used to GitHub and like Jira and all these things that software engineers use, like anything you can think of, Google has their own. Like they have their own Git, their own source control. Obviously, there's Google Docs, Sheets, all of that to get used to. They have their own internal messaging, internal everything. My exact role has many different titles, but the main one is customer solutions engineer. And so it's definitely engineering. Like I'll be doing coding in Python, but it's also kind of like working with major Google partner organizations, like big other corporations that use Google Ads, and like coming up with specific coding solutions or like data on their customers.
Sure. So compare the experience of working with a tiny startup to a massive corporation.
It's so different. Like I said, right now, the main difference is just how much onboarding and training there is, which I really like. I mean, in the startups, I was just thrown right into it. Like almost day one, I was pushing code to production pretty much. And I loved that. It was exciting. It was very cool. And I learned a lot very quickly, like social things about actually working on an engineering team, like how to talk to a manager, how to talk to a coworker, how to use GitHub, how to write comments, all of those things that, I thought about when doing projects for my boot camp with like peers, but then it's just a whole other vibe when you're doing something that like a boss or someone who's paying you is going to be reviewing it. So the pace now is just completely different. It feels weird. It feels like I'm not doing anything, but that's just because big companies, they have so much time and resources to just like, everyone has said, yeah, you're going to be spending probably 3 months just learning. And that's like, they're investing in you. They're counting on the fact that you're going to be here for several years. They say it's almost like going to college again, like all day, every day, just going to classes about Google. And that was like what my first few weeks were like, but just remotely, just these classes with people from all over the country starting the same week as me.
So in the Google preference list, when they think of hiring somebody, are they interested in finding someone with a right degree, such as they've got a computer science or software engineering or even a master's degree, and they're ready for you? Or are they just saying, we just want smart people and we'll send them to our school? Is that like, college is almost irrelevant to them? They just want smart people.
Yeah, it's very hard to say. Obviously, I'm not a HR recruiter person and I've only been here a few weeks. So who knows what the actual powers that be would say on this. But as far as I can tell, it's very much the second thing that you said of like, all that matters is the interview. And like, yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to get the interview, but actually, no, I mean, I was able to get two separate software engineering first round interviews and then this second interview. So it requires like patience and networking and all that. But yeah, once you get to the interview, everyone I've spoken to, my experience, videos on YouTube, official Google guidance is like, all that matters, can you pass the interview? And they are very technical. So like the software engineering standard ones is pretty much like, if you get a solution to this code algorithm challenge, like that's it, that's all that matters. Mine was a little bit more based on consulting, business knowledge mindset. No intense questions about it, but just kind of, yeah, once you get to the interview, they don't care about anything else. It's purely what you say in the interview. So that is nice. They really pride themselves on having people with diverse backgrounds and not like gatekeeping based on where you went to school or years of experience. And even so far as I've been able to tell from people I've met, people have all kinds of degrees, no degree, this school, that school, this amount of experience.
So you don't have your degree in computer science or related field. Is there any disadvantages that you felt where you've wondered if others are further ahead in their understanding of the problems that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I've definitely felt like insecurity and regret about that. Looking back, I do wish I had majored in computer science just because I also just love computer science now. A lot of people in tech don't. You can be a really excellent programmer, and especially, like web development and design does not require computer science and algorithms. But I kind of I like the more technical side of it. And I feel like having, yeah, just there's inherent benefit to doing something for a long time. So like, I feel like I've learned as much as I possibly could in the last year and a half. But if you've been doing anything for 5 years, you're probably going to be better at it than 1 year. But that's just my personal like insecurity and drive to learn
Mhm.
more, because there were only a few times while interviewing where I thought I was at these technical code interviews, like everyone says they're impossible. People who majored in computer science, people who didn't, even current senior software engineers are like, these coding algorithm interviews are terrible. Like, I myself don't even know how to interview people. I've already forgotten how to reverse a linked list, how to, construct a binary search tree. Like, these are not applicable to almost any real world job.
So then why do they do
So
it? Why do they give you
yeah,
a problem that is not related to your job and then base your hiring on that unrelated question?
if they're just going to use it as like a guiding point of conversation to see how you think, I kind of like that, because even if you're never exactly going to be doing that in your job, it gives you an interesting technical topic. It was like a leak code easy question, and so it didn't take up too much time, and it wasn't impossible to solve or anything. But the interviewer would just say some little things like, oh, okay, now what if we had the same problem but with this changed? And so we had a cool conversation about it, and it wasn't like as high pressure. But I've had some where it's like, okay, this would be hard or medium on leak code, and like even if I had notes and videos and everything at my disposal, this would still take me an hour to solve. And like, you're expecting me to do this in an interview? That's unfair. So I think there's a lot of variability within the general like term of these technical code interviews. Overall, short answer, yes, these technical coding challenge interviews can be like mostly really unfair and proven not to yield good employees. But then on the other hand, there are ways I think to take like little bits of the technical interview questions and use them successfully while interviewing, and to not like as an interviewer to feel like, oh, I'm actually doing something, I'm actually talking about something interesting or useful or relevant in this interview.
Sure. How about the future? So, if you are tasked to pick a new subject or a specialty, and how are you going to learn in the future? Are you going to go back to a school, or are you going to just learn things on your own using free resources, or how do you plan to learn and stay up with the IT world?
Yeah, I think about that a lot just because I do think about going back to school, although Google has like a cool benefit where I think they'll pay for like two-thirds of any part-time education that you do while working for Google. So that's just a nice option. But not anytime soon. Like within the next few years, I'm like, I've had enough school. I think I just also come from a family of like academics and people with doctorates. So that is just a personal self-imposed pressure that I'm like, oh, it would be so cool to have another degree, but it's not like necessary. But also, like I said, I do truly enjoy computer science and like the theory of it. And I have always considered myself more of an academic person. So super long term, I would consider getting like a master's or a PhD in something computer science related, just yeah, for my own like goals. Potentially though to transition to something more like a professional research position. I mean, Google has professional researchers, and I think that's like one of the highest, actually, highest level things you can be at Google is like a researcher. And I think most of those people have master's, PhDs, but I don't actually know. Well, if I had some big thing to learn specific to my job, at least as far as I can tell now, that would just be part of Google training. So I don't even really have to worry about that or think about it. And there's so many resources that they have.
So Google is going to take care of any future training. Really, you're learning on the job. You're not going to have to go back and find another boot camp to get to the next career level. You've got your ticket already in your hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully.
Yeah, very good. Well, it's a good item on your resume. So one last question, and then we're done here. Is so I've got a lot of students that are really smart. They've got good applications in their portfolio. They're ready to interview, but nobody's calling them. They're having a tough time. So is networking their lack? Is that the last thing that they're missing? Sounds like that's what you did.
I thought I was prepared for how hard it would be, and I was still constantly shocked. I mean, I remember when I finished my boot camp in May, I heard that like, yeah, networking is the thing. Employee referrals are everything. So like kind of going back to earlier question about like my network from school. I have a friend of a friend who works for Google from U Chicago, and I like messaged him on LinkedIn. I was like, "Can we talk? Can I get a referral?" And he was like, "Yeah, for sure." And so I applied online with this like internal employee referral, and I was just flat out rejected. I mean, this was before I had those two interviews, and then the third actual that went well interview, but technically this is why I say I was rejected by Google 3 times before getting this job, because the first time was just straight up felt like auto rejection. And even that I was surprised. Like, I didn't think I was being arrogant or overconfident or anything. Like, I wasn't expecting to get even an interview straight out of boot camp, but I was like, I didn't even get like recruiter response. I got like automatic email, we are not moving forward. And I thought, like, yeah, this is what happens if you just apply online. We've all gotten hundreds of those auto rejections, but I thought if I had that referral, that's like what people said was the magic ticket to getting the interview. That was like just the first of many, many rejections that I was not entirely expecting. I really just constantly felt like, okay, I was expecting rejection, but this is another level of people are not even looking at me, not even opening my resume. What ended up working as far as getting these interviews was going to things like that virtual networking session where I was actually like speaking to a Google recruiter, and then I like messaged him on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, thanks for doing this. Like, can we have a phone call?" And then we had a phone call, and he was super nice and cool, and he was like, "Yeah, send me your resume, and we'll get you started with an interview." So that was like every interview I had after that was not through the online application process. That being said, with the small startups, I did have some success with just applying online, like upload resume to their website. But those are startups with like 20 people. Like you know that when you upload your resume, like someone is gonna open it and like actually look at it. But big companies, no. I mean, the networking is definitely way more important. And like trying to get to a recruiter, I know a lot of people had success with like contacting current employees. And if you do get to know them really well and they can give you like a better referral, because when they refer you, when you apply, they say like, how well do you know this person? So I assume that's what happened when I applied to Google that first time. They were like, oh yeah, she has an employee referral, but the guy said he barely knows her, so it almost doesn't even matter. So if you have employee referrals from people who can truly vouch for your technical work, that's probably the best way. But for me, like all I had was like boot camp people. No, even my connections, like no one knew how I was at coding or anything like that. And so for me, the best way was just to like talk to all of these recruiters and interview for everything. Yeah, because what ended up happening with the job I have now was that the Google recruiter just saw, oh yeah, she's on file for having interviewed for a SWE, but has like this interesting background of like non-technical background, because my position is half technical, half non-technical. So she just thought, oh, looks like a good fit. So that specifically was like really just great coincidence, but it all comes from like just a several months long process of like constantly applying and reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn and like trying to find any kind of virtual networking event possible. So,
So, well, thanks for talking to me, and I'm going to be sharing this with the
yes.
rest of the people here. And best of luck with your future in Google, and I hope that it sticks with you for a long time.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. And good luck to everyone.
Okay, thank you.